The throne room glowed with refracted starlight. The high nobles stood in their gleaming armor, faces like carved glass, beautiful and pitiless. "Your Majesty," one said to the emperor, Ariel's father, "the alliance with humanity must proceed. But surely you cannot present her as our envoy." The emperor said nothing. His silence was agreement. Ariel stood at the base of the dais, small hands clenched. "I am capable," she whispered, but her voice barely carried across the crystalline floor. The nobles smirked. "Humans are primitive," another said. "They worship strength and conquest. They will see her weakness and deem us unworthy." The emperor finally looked at her, tired, regretful, but unbending. "You are my daughter," he said softly, "but this task requires someone stronger." She bowed her head, fighting tears. "Yes, father." They replaced her with her cousin Varen, tall, winged, perfect. And so, Ariel faded further into the background of her people's decline, until the war came. It began at the borders of Veilorian space. The Rulak Horde, a species of predatory conquerors that thrived on enslavement and subjugation, sweeping across the stars like locusts. The Veilorians called for aid from their allies. The humans answered. The Joint Defense Fleet was stationed in orbit over Kessin 4, a lush, neutral world near the contested front. There, Ariel was sent, not as an envoy, but as a political placeholder, a symbolic princess, meant to represent Veilora while her cousin commanded the fleet. The humans, however, did not treat symbols kindly. The first time Captain Jonah Hale saw her, she was standing alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars with a look of quiet defeat. He was a veteran of the Terran Navy, broad-shouldered, weathered, his uniform creased from use. Humanity had fought for survival for centuries, against plague, famine, and the void itself. They had no time for vanity, but something about her stillness drew him. "Didn't think I'd find anyone here," he said, stepping beside her. Ariel flinched slightly. "Humans enjoy solitude?" "Sometimes," Jonah said with a half-smile, "but not the kind that hurts." She looked up at him, her eyes shimmering faintly in the starlight. "I am Ariel of Veilora. You are human." "Last time I checked." He offered a hand, rough and calloused. "Captain Jonah Hale." She hesitated before taking it, her fingers delicate against his skin. "You are warm," she murmured. He chuckled. "Part of being alive." Something in her expression softened for the first time. Over the next few weeks, Jonah noticed how the Veilorian nobles ignored her. At briefings, they dismissed her suggestions without even pretending to listen. When the human officers tried to engage her, the Veilorians would subtly intervene, steering the conversation away. "She's ornamental," Varen had once said. "A child's puppet in a queen's garb." But Jonah had seen her spend hours studying battle reports, her brow furrowed in quiet thought. He'd watched her at the medical bay, comforting injured soldiers, both human and Veilorian, her voice soothing, her hands trembling but determined. And he began to realize, the smallest among them carried the greatest weight. One night, during a strategy meeting aboard the human flagship Resolute, Ariel's eyes lit up suddenly. "Wait," she said, interrupting Varen's cold, droning monologue. "If the Rulak are using plasma sieges to collapse asteroid defenses, their energy signatures must reveal their location before they strike." Varen turned on her, eyes narrow. "You presume to lecture me on warfare?" Jonah crossed his arms.
"She's right.
Our sensors picked up subspace distortions right before the last attack." Ariel continued, voice gaining strength. "If we triangulate those distortions with the debris fields, we can strike first." Silence. Then Jonah nodded. "Do it." Varen looked furious, but Jonah outranked him in the joint command structure. The ambush worked. The Allied fleet intercepted a Rulak warband before it could attack, saving 2 colonies and turning the tide of the campaign. But when the reports came in, credit was given to Varen. Ariel's name was missing entirely. Jonah found her that night on the observation deck again. "They'll never see it," she said bitterly. "No matter what I do." He leaned beside her. "Then make them see it." She gave a small, sad laugh. "You think defiance will make them love me?" "No," Jonah said. "But it'll make you love you. That's the first step." Her eyes glimmered with tears. "Humans are strange. You build from pain. You thrive in chaos." He smiled faintly. "That's what we do. When the universe throws us away, we build something better out of the scraps." For a long time she was silent. Then, softly, "I wish I could do that." He looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "You already are." Weeks passed. Battles raged. And slowly, the fleet began to whisper of the tiny princess who saw what others missed. She predicted Rulak strikes, mapped hidden wormholes, and saved countless ships with her insight. Even the humans began to call her affectionately, "Little Star." But envy burns deeper than plasma. Varen, humiliated by her growing respect, began plotting. He fed false data to her terminal, false readings that would sabotage their next operation and make her seem incompetent. When the Rulak ambushed the fleet at Kelra's Nebula, Varen blamed her instantly. "She sent us into a trap," he shouted across the command deck. The Vaelorian nobles turned their eyes toward her, cold and merciless. And Jonah, wounded but alive, stepped between them. "That's a lie," he growled. "She saved us. She always has." "She is nothing." Varen spat. "A runt. A disgrace to the throne." Jonah's voice thundered through the deck. "Then I'll take her disgrace over your cowardice any day." And for the first time, someone had claimed her, not as a duty, not as pity, but as his own. Climax. But Varen's treachery went deeper than anyone suspected. That night, he made contact with the Rulak. In exchange for power, he promised them the location of the human fleet and the princess herself. The next morning, the Rulak descended upon them in overwhelming force. The sky burned with plasma fire as the Vaelorian fleet shattered. Ships fell like dying stars. Ariel, aboard the human ship Resolute, felt the universe tremble around her. Jonah stood on the bridge, shouting orders, his uniform scorched, his eyes fierce. "Evacuate secondary decks. Shield the medical bay." She gripped the railing. "Jonah, the Vaelorian flagship, it's trapped." "Varen's ship," he barked. "Let it burn." "No," her voice broke. "My father's aboard." He turned to her, jaw tight. "Then we go." "Jonah." He met her gaze. "You're not losing him. Not today." The Resolute plunged into the chaos. Enemy fire scorched its hull, alarm screamed, but Jonah refused to stop. He piloted the ship through debris and plasma storms until they reached the crippled flagship. Ariel watched the docking clamps lock in, heart pounding. "Stay here," Jonah said, grabbing his rifle. "I'm coming." He opened his mouth to protest, but she was already moving. The corridors of the Vaelorian flagship were filled with smoke and dying light. They found the Emperor half-conscious, his armor cracked. "Father," Ariel whispered, kneeling beside him. He looked up, eyes filled with shame and wonder. "You came back." Before she could answer, the walls shook violently. Rulak boarding pods struck the hull. Jonah turned, rifle ready. "They're here." Dozens of Rulak warriors poured in, massive and armored, their claws slicing through metal. Jonah fought like a beast, firing, dodging, taking down one after another, but there were too many. Ariel's hands trembled as she tried to shield her father, a faint glow beginning to pulse beneath her skin. Then, something inside her broke open. Her wings, small, incomplete, flared with blinding light. The Veilorian gene light, thought dormant in her, awakened. A pulse of pure energy swept across the hall, disintegrating Rulak soldiers in a wave of violet fire. When the light faded, she collapsed into Jonah's arms. He caught her, heart pounding. Hey, stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open. You called me yours. He smiled faintly through blood and smoke. Still do. Ending. The battle at Kelras became legend. The Rulak were pushed back, their flagship destroyed. Varen's treachery was exposed. His transmissions recovered from the wreckage. He was executed by the Veilorian Council. The Emperor, humbled, stepped down soon after, naming his daughter as his heir. At her coronation, she stood before her people, still small, still fragile, but radiant. I was once told I was unworthy, she said to the silent hall. Too small to lead, too weak to stand. But humanity showed me that strength is not in size, or blood, or wings. It is in will. Her eyes found Jonah among the crowd, dressed in Terran uniform, smiling proudly. And I will rule with that will. My own, and that of those who believed in me when no one else did. The nobles bowed, some reluctantly, some with tears in their eyes. For the first time, they saw her, not as a blemish, but as a queen. Later, on the balcony overlooking the twin suns, she found Jonah again. You could return to Earth, she said softly. Could, he admitted. But then who'd keep you out of trouble? She smiled, small and bright. They still call me tiny. He grinned. Then they haven't seen how big your heart is. Her wings fluttered faintly in the warm wind. Do humans ever claim what they love? Jonah looked at her for a long moment. Then he took her hand. Only when they mean it. And the tiny alien princess, once rejected by her own, looked up at the human who had called her his and smiled. Across the stars, their story spread, of a small girl who became a queen and the human who taught her that even the smallest light can outshine the void.